Throughout the modern era, most NBA teams, when they're making their long playoff push and they have their established players, they usually make their runs from 4 to 7 years. And when I say modern era, I'm talking about Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, all the way up until present day. But we've always seen these teams have a 4 to 7 year stretch where they make their runs year in, year out, deep playoff runs, and they're trying to make championship pushes. And I believe the longest stretch we've seen was from Tim Duncan and the Spurs. But if I'm wrong about that, you guys correct me on that. With the new upcoming CBA, this everyday occurrence with teams on this type of level will be put to the test. And we're going to see many duos throughout the league, even the guys that are up and coming like Desmond Bane and Ja Morant. We're going to see those duos have a much narrower window to make their championship run. And that's because with the new CBA, once guys qualify to make a certain percentage of the cap, whether that be 35% or less, with these max deals, which fluctuate up and down depending on the player's circumstance, how often they make all NBA. But once you have two players that are kind of almost touching the super max threshold of 35% of the cap, it becomes difficult to put solid players around these duos. Because now going forward with the new CBA in 2024-2025 season, teams that start to go over the cap by 17 million from back-to-back seasons, I believe 2 out of 4 years, they start to get punished. So them actually maintaining their teams from year in, year out become much more difficult. Their first round picks end up going at the end of the first round automatically if they're over the cap by 17 million for 2 years in a row. Or if they're over the cap by 17 million for 2 out of 4 years. And that's not even the worst of it. If they stay over the cap, they're limited on using mid-level exceptions, whether to pick up players or for trades. Same thing for their first round picks. They're limited on how many first round picks they can get or send out in trades. And most importantly, they're limited to the type of contracts that they can trade for. So if they have a supermax player, things are not working out, they can only trade him for another supermax player until they get under that $182 million threshold. So a lot of teams right now, present day, are going to be put to the test with this going forward from season to season. The Celtics with Jason Tatum and Brown, the Bucks, the Suns, Grizzlies, Nuggets, Clippers, and to somewhat degree the Lakers. But most definitely the Mavs. As the Mavericks move along, they're going to try to put pieces around Kyrie and Luka, and things might get a little tricky because they're going to have to dip in and out of being over that luxury tax line of $182 million. Now, the Clippers are a team that have been currently over that cap for quite some time, but by the time the new CBA kicks in, they're going to have a lot of guys, especially their role players, out of this roster or just free agents. So they kind of escape that, especially going into that brand new stadium. I'm not sure if Steve Ballmer wants to flip the bill on a luxury tax and also deal with this team not having the output that he expected, which his team was already projected to win a championship in 2020. And just everything kind of been downhill ever since because of injuries. But when you have injury-riddled guys like that, especially with this new CBA, you are not going to want to lock those guys to high numbers where if you're over that cap, you're going to be pretty much stuck with those guys. So Steve Ballmer going forward, he might actually make sure that they're under that second apron just in case guys like Kawhi and PG are kind of immobile. That way he'll have enough flexibility to get out of those contracts through trades. But if the Clippers re-sign Kawhi and Paul George and they're over that $182 million luxury tax threshold, and then these guys end up getting injured, they're just going to be stuck going forward. And not only that, year in, year out, their first round draft pick 7 years from then is going to be moved automatically to the end of the first round. So next season, if they re-sign Kawhi and Paul George and they keep getting injured in 2026, 2027, 28, 29, all those first round picks 7 years out from each of those years are going to be at the end of the first round. So, but Steve Ballmer, it'll be very interesting to see how he negotiates these brand new deals. But with the league rest rules in play, he might actually have an upper hand with these guys being on the court. It's almost like these teams in a way have to operate how the Lakers have been operating the past few seasons. Even though they got LeBron James and Anthony Davis on the books, they seem to have gone with the development of some younger guys and just trying to find gems that kind of fit to their team. But the Lakers, if they could find maybe like a nice 3-and-D guy that can make about $20 million, that'll actually put them above the tax threshold in that second apron. So right now they're kind of stuck in the middle ground where they can only really afford, well, not afford, but they're only willing to sign guys around the $15 to about $11 million range. So this is the conundrum a lot of duels are going to have, is that once two guys are making 35% of the cap, their teams are going to have to be really selective on who they get, and the development is really going to have to be keen. But mainly for the first time, a lot of these duels, their championship windows, much more narrow than before.